Okay, this is my PowerPoint on constructivism. Constructivism is the theory that humans gain knowledge and meaning from interacting with people, having experiences, and developing ideas. Some of the foundational theorists for constructivism are Jean Piaget, Lev Vygotsky, and John Dewey. There were others, but these are the three main or most common men. Seymour Papert developed a constructionist theory which inspired the constructivism ideas of Jean Piaget. Child's play and exploration were once viewed as pointless and of little importance, but Piaget knew this was incorrect. He understood that exploration and play for children were necessary for their cognitive development. Piaget also felt that playing is an important part of learning from infancy to adulthood. Vygotsky believed that teachers and students should be equals in the learning process. He was also a strong supporter of peer collaborating because he believed speech usage would increase the learner's ability to communicate. There are several areas that are different when comparing traditional ideas about teaching and learning to constructivism. Curriculum is the first example. In a traditional classroom, the curriculum begins with a small part of the big picture and works its way up to the whole concept. The emphasis for traditional classroom curriculum is placed on the student's understanding basic skills. The curriculum is highly valued in a traditional classroom. The teacher must focus on finishing the curriculum and following the book. In a constructivist classroom, curriculum begins with showing students the whole picture and breaking it down into smaller parts by explaining each one. Although curriculum and standards are still highly valued in a constructivist classroom, the emphasis is placed more on understanding of students and their questions. The way students are viewed is the second example of how a traditional classroom differs from a constructivist classroom. In a traditional classroom, students are simply recipients of knowledge. They are expected to sit quietly and listen or take notes as the teacher explains the lesson in a lecture format. Since the emphasis is on the curriculum, there is not much time for students to engage and ask questions to better understand. In a constructivist classroom, the students are encouraged and expected to be engaged and have a dialogue with their peers and their teacher. Being involved in a class-wide discussion will help students construct their own knowledge. For the third difference in a traditional and constructivist classroom, I'm going to talk about how students work. In a traditional classroom, the students usually work alone. There are some group discussions and maybe a project with a partner, but the primary way students work is by themselves. In a constructivist classroom, students usually work in groups. Students will have times where they work on their own, but the primary way of working is together. Shoulder partners, group discussions, class discussions, and anything involving encouragement of students discussing what they are learning with each other and their teacher. This not only helps to develop their knowledge, but also their language skills. The teacher's role is another big difference in a traditional and constructivist classroom. In a traditional classroom, the teacher's role is very direct and gives off the sense of ultimate authority. In constructivist classroom, the teacher's role gives off more of a negotiable sense and is interactive. Many people begin to criticize the constructivist point of view on this topic because of the negotiation issue. The negotiation lies only in learning, asking questions, and interacting. The authority still lies in the teacher as far as control of the classroom and punishment or reward. Even with the curriculum, the teacher is the ultimate authority, but her job is to encourage students to interact and give opinions so she can better explain and break apart if needed. The final difference that I will discuss between traditional and constructivist classrooms are the assessments. In a traditional classroom, assessments mean standardized or written tests. Students are expected to give correct answers on a piece of paper after being given a question. In a constructivist classroom, the written tests are also methods of assessment, but assessments also include teachers observing students' work, graded projects and presentations, and discussing and evaluating their points of view. Process is just as important as product in a constructivist classroom. The PAR model of learning is directly related to constructivism. PAR stands for Present, Apply, Review. In this model, the present part would be when the learning goals are explained by the teacher to the students. The teacher will make sure that the students understand what the goals are and emphasize the importance of their work. In the apply part, students are given activities and exercises that require them to apply their knowledge they have just been presented. This step can involve things like problem solving, making decisions, and creating projects such as posters or group presentations. In the review section, teachers should make sure that students fully understand and were able to apply what they just learned. This can be done by checking their work for the apply part, asking them questions and listening to their detailed answers, and giving them a traditional quiz or test. This is related to constructivism because it encourages students to use hands-on projects and apply what they have learned rather than just listen to the teacher lecture and not have to prove what they understand. The encouragement placed on group discussions is also the same in constructivism and the PAR model. The only difference is that the PAR model is much more detailed and laid out in 3 separate steps, where constructivism is not. A topic I would teach my future 2nd grade class would be the 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. Instead of simply telling them and having them listen, read, and maybe fill out a worksheet, I would want them to experiment with me. For example, after reading and going over or taking questions about the states of matter, I would have the class break up into groups. I would pass out pre-made ice cubes made from brightly colored juice in plastic Ziploc bags. The groups would place the ice cubes in their bag and pass them around to fill them. We would determine that the ice cubes are in the solid form. We would take turns taping the bags to the window in direct sunlight and observe them a few hours later. The students would determine that the solid form has now turned to liquid form and try to explain why. After a few more hours, we would observe the bags again and notice that there are water droplets at the top of the bag. We would discuss that this means part of it had evaporated into the gas because of the sunlight. If this was the PAR model, we would then maybe write about it in our journals for the day, and I would have the students explain what they learned and how our project allowed them to see and understand it better.